Well, we've got all this rain now moving through, and it's doing kind of what we were thinking eventually it would do is bow out and become kind of a straight line wind event. So right now, this line of storms that dropped about 2 3/4 inch hail down in parts of southeast or south central parts of North Dakota, kind of down in that Carthay area. Um, has turned into a big hailer, turned from a big hailer into a wind event. And so we've got some strong winds now heading off to the northeast with 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts associated with this storm as they move, maybe even 65 miles per hour as they move to the northeast at about 65 miles an hour. So these storms are going to be heading towards Minto, Grafton, St. Thomas, Drayton, Donaldson, Carlstead, Strandquist, and New Folden here, and Warren as well. So as we sit here in Grand Forks and watch this stuff come through, obviously got really, really dark. The wind picked up pretty good here. Plenty of rain associated with this. So we're looking at this going, it's going to be pretty hard. It's going to be, what is this? It's going to be pretty hard to see as you be driving down the road with these storms rolling through. If anybody's got any type of video out there that you want to share at all, go ahead and hit me up at Region WX. That's the best way to do that, and we can share this online so people upstream from or downstream from these storms can kind of get a sense for what we're looking at or what they're going to be experiencing here over the next few minutes. I'm just trying to get, let's see, things. So make sure you're getting, you're in a safe spot with these storms when they roll through. I'm probably not an area that or a time when, it's going to be kind of hard to see as you're driving through some of these, areas. As I said, looking out the window right now as it's rolling through Grand Forks here, and we're kind of through the worst of it, but it's still pretty dark and it's still even pretty hard to see out there. Man, is it rumbling out though. Holy cow. It's just a constant rumble as it's rolling through here in Grand Forks. So Hmm. Yeah, these storms they're moving fast too. So just to take note with these storms as they continue to move quickly off to the northeast this morning. You can see as we put this into motion, how fast they're racing off to the northeast. So it's already coming to you in Grafton, and it's going to be coming up to Stephen real quick. Carlstead, Halma, Lake Bronson, Hallock, Newfoundland. It's going to be it's going to be over you in no time. As well as Grafton, Drayton, St. Thomas, coming up to Pembina. It's going to be rolling through and out. And out of the country here in no time flat. Also, probably have to keep an eye on these areas further east as well. Looks like they're starting to pick up steam. So areas in Thief River Falls, looks like the stuff's going through Red Lake Falls at this point. And it just continues to be a constant rumble out there. As most of this stuff is now passed, the heaviest stuff has passed through East Grand Forks, but right now we're watching pretty much, let's see here, all you guys right in through here. It's going to be coming up on you guys in a hurry, so make sure you're taking the right precautions here over the next half hour. You can see by within 45 minutes, this whole thing is about to exit the country. So these are about 15-minute tick marks. So Donaldson in 15 minutes, Lake Bronson half hour, and 45 minutes. It's out of there. And then I wouldn't be surprised if we see probably a severe thunderstorm warning that starts to grab some of these areas a little bit further east in Thief River and Goodridge and Grigla and Middle River. So again, everybody within this area here is just needs to be aware that these storms are heading up in your direction, moving to the northeast at about 65 miles per hour. With 60 mile per hour winds, maybe 65. So that'll do some damage. But at the very, the other part of it is when these storms came through, visibility's really dropped. It got dark. It got really dark here in Grand Forks when these storms came through, and So just to be aware if you're having to travel out and about. It won't take long. It won't take long, and these storms will be past you. So just, if you can, maybe just wait them out a little bit. Um, but these storms, again, just moving quickly off to the northeast. This storm's it's been an interesting one. This actually started way down. Let's see, tree uprooted 7 southwest of Clote in Griggs County out here, kind of west of Anita, north of Cooperstown. So a tree uprooted as these storms rolled through. But these storms, they started down, way down, southwestern parts of South Dakota. Dropped a lot of hail, had some strong winds with it. But now, as expected, these storms have turned into more of a linear QLCS type of storm where we've got the strong damaging winds associated with it. Maybe 1-inch hail. We didn't really get that here in East Grand, but possibly some hail associated with it. But really the main threat's going to be the winds as this just rockets off the northeast here this morning. Boy, and the other thing is a lot of rain. You can see some of these storm reports are a little bit further kind of out in Welds County. 4.5 inches of rain fell in Welds County right around Bremen. Over 2 inches in Pheasanton, also in Welds County. Over 2.5 inches in Jamestown. So these there's been a lot of rain associated with these storms that have been kind of training throughout the night. As well, so these areas keep getting hit with more, one bit of a rain, and then another storm rolls through, and then they get another shot, and then here we go with yet one more storm that kind of rolls through some of these areas, and you can see how quickly they're moving off to the north and east. Now, so far there hasn't been any hints of tornadic activity. Sometimes on the bookends of these storms, particularly, you can kind of almost see how this storm sort of rotates on the west end just a bit. And so those are sort of the areas right now, at least, that, maybe just be mindful of, I guess, of in case anything can kind of spin up. But really, within these storms, as they quickly move, just blast to the northeast, man, they've picked up speed. You might get hurricane force winds associated with these, and maybe just a brief touchdown as well. And it doesn't take long, but the main thing is just be in your safe spot and be in a basement or in the lower part of your shelter, and take shelter if you're in a mobile home, or maybe caught outside, or if you're doing any work out there, if you're a construction worker, probably not a good time to be out there. You're going to be wanting to take precautions as this really starts to pick up speed here. So we're looking at 60, maybe 70 mile per hour winds as these storms continue to move off to the northeast. And there again, we can kind of see the tick marks here at about every 15 minutes. Donaldson, you're about 15 minutes away. Carlstead and Halma, Strandquist, 25 minutes, 30 minutes out to Greenbush, maybe Badger, Lancaster. Then once we get to that 45-minute mark, kind of gets into that Roseau and starts to exit out and into Canada at that point. Here's from Jordan Schreier from Valley News Live. That some really large hail that fell out there earlier today as these storms rolled through the southern parts of North Dakota. Of course, this is kind of what it looks like basically right around Grand Forks at this point. looking a little better out at UND, but excuse me. But you guys off to the north and east, Thief River, Hallock, Roseau. Oops, sorry. Yeah. Forgot to change that. I didn't even see that up there. There, North Dakota. Yeah. Sometimes you get on too quickly. And you focus on the things that are in front of you, and you don't always, you don't see the little details like that. There we go. North Dakota and Minnesota. Thanks. I appreciate the heads up there. And again, just you know, take the precautions as these rocket off to the north and east. Some strong winds heading your way, and some pretty good rainfall, some torrential rainfall as well associated with these storms. Poke around here, and it looks like the winds or the hail, maybe an inch in diameter, so about a quarter at most. But by and large, the main threat continues to be, will continue to be the strong winds as these storms move off to the northeast at 65 miles per hour, and expected to run through Hallock and Roseau here within less than 45 minutes at this point. You can see where these storms kind of developed way down further south. Plenty of storm reports, actually. I'm going to kind of click on some of these and see what, as they ran through the Aberdeen area, 60s, 56, 60 miles, 50, 70 mile per hour wind gusts by Edmonds. This was all down in South Dakota a lot earlier. You can see how they ran through Jamestown and then northward to kind of east of New Rockford, and now through us here in Grand Forks and Grafton, heading towards Langdon and Roseau. But again, this is the same cluster. This is the same area we've watched way down in Rapid City. It started way down in here and just kept moving north east all night. And this is basically where we're at this point. Is we're watching these storms now, kind of on the way out, of the U.S. and heading towards Canada at this point. Beyond this, once these storms kind of move off to the northeast, we may see a little bit of lingering activity in northwestern parts of Minnesota later in the afternoon. There might be just enough instability left out there that we might pick up a few extra storms kind of north of Grand Forks in that Roseau region. So not completely out of the woods yet. As you can see, maybe some storms just kind of rolling right across the Canadian border into northern parts of Minnesota. And then kind of fizzling out once we lose a little bit of that daytime heating and those storms kind of move into the Arrowhead region. So not completely out of the woods, as I said, maybe across northwest or particularly just northern parts, far northern parts of Minnesota throughout the day. But really that's really about the only areas that should be concerned about any type of weather later on. Now, the only other thing would be southeastern parts of Minnesota. Early Wednesday morning, some of these storms down there may have an isolated severe event or two where you're talking 1 inch hail and 60 mile per hour winds. But of course, that's also running through Minneapolis right around rush hour time. So that's always not a good thing when you get storms rolling through when everybody's trying to get to work. But then you can see how those storms move off into Wisconsin in the morning hours, and maybe a few stragglers left in down in the southeast as we get into Wednesday afternoon. But and then, one thing to note, you see these showers and storm, or these rain moving through, and you can pretty much guess we're dealing with some stronger winds associated with that. So Wednesday is going to be very windy, starting out in the western parts of the Dakotas. As you can see, 40 to maybe even 60 mile per hour winds starting to whip into western North Dakota in particular, and then spread eastward into across North Dakota and northern Minnesota. So this is all on Wednesday. Where we're going to be looking at some very, very strong westerly winds come through. A little bit of a cooler day, obviously, as well. And then beyond that, you can see how the temperatures get blown. The cooler air just gets blown eastward throughout the day on Wednesday, and then Thursday is going to be a little cooler as well. And then we are talking the possibility of some triple-digit temperatures as we head into next weekend. So that'll be fun. But as for now, this is what we're looking at for the morning hours here, kind of as our immediate threat, as these storms continue to move off to the northeast at 65 miles per hour towards Hallock and Roseau, Middle River, Greenbush, Grigla, Lancaster, Hallock, and Pembina. All these areas in through here are looking at 60, maybe 65 mile per hour winds as these move off to the northeast at 65 miles per hour. So they're moving quickly, and they're going to be through you in no time at all. No time at all. These things are moving. They're moving very, very quickly. And here's the satellite loop. You can see the amount of lightning kind of associated with it. Actually had quite a bit more a little bit further south of us. It's starting to lose some of the lightning here. That's what you're seeing, all the pluses on this. The cold, the cloud tops, the dark areas here in the black. That indicates that's the area with the best rising motion. You're getting these storms just overshooting and rising 50,000 feet into the air. And so that's your storm right there, obviously. And then, so we watch that as these storms move off to the northeast, just to see if they're at all warming. If they get into that more red and orange color, then that means the storm's losing some of its punch. But right now, obviously, that's not the case. Still got plenty of some darkness to it. Some of that black areas where this storm is just continues to just bubble up and explode vertically. But like I said, it seems like the lightning seems to be on the decrease. But nevertheless, they continues to march off to the northeast with these storms very quickly. Yeah, and if anybody's got any good videos, any good pictures out there, like I said before, at Region WX, that's where you can catch me on Twitter. Go ahead and tag me on Twitter, Region WX. You kind of see it pop above me once in a while. You see my Twitter handle show up in the corner. Here was outside our area here. Guess I won't listen to that. But yeah, you can see the trees moving quite a bit up there. Obviously, I mean, this is our neighbor just across the street, and even the visibility's dropped enough that it got a little hard to see just even in town. So I can't imagine what it was like out in the country once this stuff kind of moved through. All the trees, I think, appeared to survive, so that's good. But that's kind of what we saw as it came through us here in East Grand Forks. And of course, we mentioned a little bit earlier, the other thing is just the possibility of flooding. Here's going through Grand Forks earlier from weather unrated. That guy, boy, if you're anywhere around the eastern and North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota, this is a good guy to follow. He's always got good videos and pictures, and he seems to always be in the right spot at the right time. So WX unrated, weather unrated, and he's always a great guy to follow. So go ahead, and I would encourage you to go ahead and find him, because he's always got some good videos. He always seems to be in the right place when we're talking about weather in this part of the country. So this is northeastern North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota is where these storms are rolling through right now. So we're talking Warren, Thief River, Grafton, Hallock, Roseau, coming up to Middle River, Greenbush, Badger, Grigla, just coming through Goodridge at this point as well. So those are the areas that we're following these storms as they continue to move to the north. Some of these areas picking up a little bit of steam a little bit east of the warned area. So again, I would just be mindful of these as well. Even though you might not be in the warned area, I would expect we got to be seeing a new warning coming out here shortly, as this is quickly outrunning the current warned area. But yeah, Hallock, Roseau, Goodridge, Grigla, Middle River, Badger, Greenbush, all you guys out there. These storms are heading your way, and so we've got some strong 60 mile per hour winds heading that way, as well as some pretty torrential rainfall, as well as these continue to move off to the northeast at 65 miles per hour. We're going to put the storm track here. You can see how quickly these are going to be moving out. 15 minutes, Lake Bronson, Greenbush, half hour. It's already up, just kind of starting to cross the Canadian border by that point. And then here, 15 minutes to Strathcona, half hour in between that Badger and Wanaska area, maybe in the Roseau by within 20 minutes, or 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and then 45 minutes. We're talking again, exiting out into Canada. Nothing to be, yep, we've got some strong winds associated with these storms. Nothing to be just deathly terrified. Just like always, is if you take the precautions, if you do what needs to be done, you're going to be just fine. So just make sure you have a shelter, and even if they're camping, if they have nowhere else to go, even a vehicle at this point would be a good thing, just because they're low to the ground, and they're pretty sturdy, and they're most likely not going to go anywhere. Whereas obviously if you're tenting or something like that, you don't want to be in a tent as these roll through. But yeah, that's I know the camping is always a big thing around here in through the Dakotas and Minnesota, as well as the cabin time around here. People like to get out. We have such a short summer, so there's all sorts of people out there camping, and they're in their cabins and enjoying what they can of the summer. But this is what happens sometimes. You get these. Obviously, you deal with the storms as well. So you just got to know what to do when they do come through. Yeah, I'm just tongue-tied this morning for some reason. It's early in the morning and I'm tired. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself or stuttering. So yeah, we'll just kind of continue to monitor this. See, I can't even say monitor correctly as these move off to the northeast. I guess if anybody's got any specific questions regarding these storms. Oh boy. Hello, Rhiannon. I know I butchered that. My daughter's going to kill me because I know what she said. It's the Fleetwood Mac song and I can't say it. Rihanna. let's see, Cloten, North Dakota. Tree uprooted as of 7:15, so about 50 minutes ago. And that's about all I'm seeing right now as far as any type of storm reports as these storms roll through. Oh, yeah, the other thing to mention, I guess, just if anybody happens to be listening, I believe there is a heat advisory out down for the cities just because it's supposed to be, obviously, the temperatures are going to be in the 90s today. Let me take a look and see if that is indeed true, but I believe that was the case. Yeah, here we've got heat advisory today until 8 p.m. this evening, with heat indexes up to 103 expected for portions of northwest and west central Wisconsin, central, east central, south central, and southeast Minnesota. Hot temperatures and high humidity may cause heat illness to occur. So, yet something else here to think about throughout portions of southeast Minnesota. We also, looks like we got a dense fog advisory around Duluth. And then flood warnings north of Duluth. And yeah, they look, so they did extend, obviously, that severe thunderstorm warning, just kind of overlaid it along the same area. Again, I think I probably would have included these areas just a little bit further east as well, including Goodridge and Grigla. But here we are. Moving northeast, it says 70 miles per hour, which makes sense because they definitely look like they've picked up some speed. Still saying 60 mile per hour wind gusts, so expect damage to roof sidings and trees. This will be near Newfolden right about now. Lake Bronson, Helma, Strandquist at 8:15, Middle River at 8:20, Strathcona, Humboldt, Noise around 8:25. Other locations are Greenbush and Caribou. Of course, this does include Interstate 29 between 127 and 217, between mile markers 127 and 217. So for your protection, just move to an interior room on the lowest floor of a building. And if you are outside, make sure you're taking shelter. These things are going to be coming up to you really, really quick. So you're really not going to have a whole lot of time to prepare. So just know that as these storms are approaching, you might have less time than you would think here. Again, about 15 minutes. We're looking at Greenbush, maybe 20, 25, Badger. 30 minutes in Roseau, and then anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes, basically exiting out into the Canadian, exiting out towards Canada. Overlay the storm track a little bit further south. Here we go, 15 minutes, 30 minutes just east of Spencer, and then 45, it kind of gets into that War Road area. So yeah, we're just we'll follow this out here for the next half hour or so. Once it reaches into Canada, we'll let it go. Obviously, we'll let the stream go. But this is really the main event across the Dakotas and Minnesota today. Might have a few stragglers across the north later this afternoon. That might have an isolated severe event with wind and hail, but it looks like it does appear that this is the main thing that's expected for today. Maybe some storms down in the southeast early Wednesday morning, including Minneapolis. But overall, today this will be the main thing. This will be the main event. Oh, and then those strong winds for Wednesday. If you were tuned in a little bit ago. 50 mile per hour westerly winds ripping through North Dakota for Wednesdays. So that'll be fun. Been an interesting few days here. Boy, in South Dakota got rocked here. The western parts of South Dakota, they got nailed the last couple of days. Large hail. Um, Up around 4 inches in diameter. There was an area in Belfouche, which is just north of Rapid City, kind of north of the Black Hills, a couple days ago. And they just got pummeled with hail and strong winds to where the dealership, all the cars were just destroyed. A lot of windows knocked out. So we finally get a little bit quieter days here over the remainder of the week. Save for maybe the area down in southeastern parts of Minnesota tomorrow, but thankfully some quieter days coming up. I mentioned a little bit ago the warm temperatures expected here. This is highs for Wednesday across the Dakotas and Minnesota. So 70s across South Dakota, maybe some 80s as well, South Dakota and Minnesota. But then you see the cooler air kind of pushing its way into North Dakota for Wednesday. Let's see here. By Thursday, still a little pocket of cooler air in North Dakota, but overall still we're looking at 70s and 80s. And then as we get into Friday, you can see the temperatures start to warm up with the triple digits down in the southwestern parts of South Dakota. So here you can see that warm front now beginning to make its way to the northeast. And then on Saturday, triple digits into South Dakota, maybe even North Dakota. Widespread 80s, 90s, and maybe even, like I said, 100 degrees out there. Meanwhile, eastern parts of Minnesota will hold on for another day there. And then on Sunday, everybody's going to be in the 90s to very likely we'll be seeing some hundreds across South Dakota by next week, by this coming weekend. So a warm warm weekend in store. So hopefully everybody's got some lake time planned because it's going to be a great weekend for that. And of course, as typical with these storms, or with, I should say, with the heat, it looks like it's going to be so warm that we're not really expecting much for rain. But here we are on Wednesday, and that's where we're expecting those strong westerly winds. You can see the isobars here; they're very, very tightly packed. So that means a lot of pressure gradient going on here. It's like letting out the air out of the balloon, essentially. So we've got our low up here, butting up against our high further to our south. And so we're going to be having some strong westerly winds on Wednesday now. So that'll be the day maybe when we see some showers kind of spread across North Dakota and northern Minnesota. And then as we get into Thursday and the heat starts to build, it pretty much shuts things off. That heat just creates a dome over us for the most part. Maybe some storms in Minnesota just because that boundary does kind of sit up there. If you remember just a little bit ago, showed you how we had 90s further west and then 70s into eastern parts of Minnesota. So that boundary might be where some storms fire up later in the day on Saturday. But then as you get into Sunday and everybody's under that heat dome, pretty much everybody's going to be cut off from any type of rain and thunder for a little bit. And then we get into next week, and that gets a little muddy because obviously we're out there a little bit of a ways. So a quieter week in store the way it's appearing right now. maybe some rain on Wednesday, and then possibly some storms in eastern parts of Minnesota on Saturday. But again, that's a little bit of a ways out there. The one thing we do know for sure is it's going to be hot. It's going to be warm out there. All right, turning back to the radar, just coming up to Lake Bronson, Lancaster, Greenbush, Strathcona. And we'll overlay the storm track once again, about 15 minutes away from Badger and about a half hour away from exiting out into Canada, at least in the central part of the storm. And about 45 minutes once it gets up to War Road. And starts to get up into the lakes up in the far northern parts of Minnesota. So again, these tick marks are about every 15 minutes is what you're looking at. So some 60 mile per hour winds. These are heading off to the northeast at 70 miles per hour. So strong winds and some heavy downpours expected with these storms. If you're out there, if you were listening, I appreciate if you give her the old thumbs up on the live feed here. Also, don't be afraid to subscribe. I do try to put out weather forecasts when I can. Last couple of nights hasn't allowed me to just because we've been following the severe weather. So we've been on live here in the evenings and nighttime hours. Been some late nights as we've been following them. So, but yeah, the more likes we get and the more follows and all that fun stuff, the more people that get to see these, get to see this video. And sometimes these areas off in the far, reaches of Minnesota here, they don't always get the coverage. So they might appreciate that, that they know that they've got somewhere to turn to. Just because the only TV stations around right now is the ones down in Fargo, so I'm guessing they're probably not talking a whole lot about these storms. But here you go. You got kind of got somewhere to turn to, and of course, as always, if you've got a specific question, I'm always happy to answer them. And there you go. They did decide to now finally include these areas down here by Goodrich Grigla. And coming up to Skyme and Pencer and Wanaska. So essentially you've got this whole area here where these storms are headed at this point. Moving northeast at 70 mile per hour, 60 mile per hour wind gusts associated with these. And thankfully, doesn't they're moving so quickly and they're all moving together, so that's great. That means they're at this point anyway. Nothing I can pick out as far as any type of rotation that can happen on occasion. It still bears a little bit of watching as it continues to move off to the northeast. But it doesn't appear to be any type of rotation out there currently with these storms. Just mind you, again, they are moving very, very quickly, though. So as it as you see them coming, just to take the precaution and just take a little extra time to be prepared, especially if you're going to be outside or driving or doing some work out there. These storms are moving through fast, so just make sure you have a shelter ready so that when these storms do roll through, they're going to be packing some wind and some pretty torrential rains as they move through your area. Yep. Yeah. Drew, that's my deal. I do Dakotas and Minnesota. Um, and here's why. There's a couple reasons why. I grew up here, lived here. Grew up in North Dakota, working here in Grand Forks. I've worked in Minneapolis. I lived down there for a number of years. I've obviously traveled through South Dakota, um, gone to the Badlands and the Black Hills, and actually done weather forecasting for South Dakota. So this is kind of my area. The other reason is, um, some of these other guys on YouTube, they're not following this. They're not gonna bother with this type of stuff just because if they followed every area, they'd be exhausted. Here we got a little bit of rotation showing up north of Goodridge. But they're you got the big guys, and if you follow online, if you go on YouTube, you know who they are. But they're gonna follow that kind of stuff anyway. So you'll have other guys that'll be on live, and I'm not gonna, at this point, I'm not competing for them. My area is the Dakotas and Minnesota, so that's where I stick to. That's where I'm familiar with. So I'm familiar with the towns. I'm familiar with the area, and obviously, the more I do this and kind of get back into it, the events I'm going to remember and be able to talk about and relate to. Whereas these other guys, like I said, they just follow the big stories, and so no, I will not be following the area into Central Plains and the Upper Midwest in Iowa. South Central Minnesota. There might be some stuff there. Yeah, if it makes it into Minnesota, that would be the only time I would kind of kick into gear, and that might be tomorrow morning that I'll have to be watching for these storms to roll through. But overall, yeah, I mean, if it's significant enough, there'll be other guys out there. Yeah, I hate to say go watch somebody else, but that's just the truth, and it's I guess I'm competing with the guy. I'm competing for viewers in the Dakotas and Minnesota, so. That way, when the storms roll through, and the guys with the bigger budgets want to cover it, hopefully everybody's just following me, and they're like, "Hey, what the heck? How come whenever I cover the Dakotas and Minnesota, my viewership drop?" That'd be kind of a fun deal. That'd be kind of fun to say, "Huh, it's because of me, because everybody follows me because you don't cover the events all the time." They just follow the ratings. They follow the big storms. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, that's why I do the areas I do. I've lived and worked here forever. Just be mindful as these storms continue to move off, especially in areas of some urban areas. These storms are just packing just a lot of rain as they move through as well. So street flooding is going to be an issue, and there has been some areas. I know, like I said, as we talk about Grand Forks, further down to the southwest here where we're at, we've had, I guess we're having some issues with some street flooding. So that's another thing to always be concerned about. Just take your time as you're driving through some of this stuff, and if you don't have to, don't do it. Doesn't pay you to wreck your car. Just not worth it. So we're still talking about 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail associated with this. This was the Weather Service just a few minutes ago. So 60-mile-per-hour hail up to a quarter, so that's about an inch in diameter. Running through Skyim, Winnetka, Roseau. This is just basically an updated tweet talking about that last severe thunderstorm warning that they issued. And then they're talking with the larger one kind of running through Carlstead and Roseau and Hallock. 60-mile-per-hour wind, penny-sized hail. And then you can kind of get an idea of the population affected by this warning. 115,076 schools and 8 hospitals. So that's kind of neat when you see that. Gives you an idea what kind of a location, how many people are affected by these storms as they roll through. Looks like we've had some power outages earlier here in Griggs. We've got about 100 people out, 49 in Foster. McIntosh, 67. 202 in Stutzman, 46 in Barnes. 9 out in Steele, 25 out in Trail. 7 in Nelson, 22 in Grand Forks. Let's see here. So these storms given areas of causing some power outages as they go through here and there. Nothing out currently in northern Minnesota. But obviously that's always the other thing. These storms come through, maybe a branch comes down on a transformer or something and knocks out the power for a bit. Yep, that's who I'm referring to, Drew. That's the big guy. Yeah. I know he hasn't been online lately. There's also another guy out there that sometimes will cover more. Actually, there's a couple of guys out there that might be on if Ryan is not. You know, the good thing about Nebraska is, well, I'll just take a quick gander, I guess, but yeah, so it looks like that stuff. You were talking about the stuff in Nebraska, and it's going to be firing up through the overnight hours and kind of moving to the north and east, and that's the area that we're talking about moving into Minnesota by early Wednesday morning. Probably won't pack too much of a punch by that point. But yeah, I mean, there's some areas you're going to be seeing some looking like some hail and maybe some stronger winds down in Nebraska through the overnight hours. Probably starting to fire up around 9 p.m. or so, and then moving off to the north and east through the overnight hours. Yep, that's yeah. Yeah, Ryan's on vacation, which obviously he deserves, and yeah, he covers the larger events. Um, but as I said, there's others. There are others out there. We and that makes it difficult. You know, when you try to when you're trying to cover the whole U.S. and there's storms out there, um, that gets exhausting. And I don't know. I don't know if uh, what some of these guys are doing are the right recipe or not. Just because of that, eventually, you know, you think. I mean, I know he's got some help out there. Um, but eventually, man, that's got to be tiring. Um, I mean, I know they're on forever on there. So, I guess my business plan, my thought, my recipe, if you will, more calls for let's just focus in on an area. Let's focus in on an area, and that way, um, you know, the burnout isn't as much, and so then you are able to cover some of these activity, you know, more areas that just cover sort of the region that you're covering. So I don't. I mean, yep, they do a nice job, and uh, they got a lot of followers out there and stuff. But I just don't know. It'll be interesting if that's going to be able to be maintained long term. That'd be tough. That'd be tough to be following the storms all over the place. That'd be a lot of late nights. And again, my thing is, you know, stick to the areas you know. You know, I started doing it this winter and doing some live events, even just with the winter weather stuff and just talking about roads and road conditions and where we can expect bad visibilities and all that kind of fun stuff. So it doesn't just around here, it doesn't just start and end with thunderstorms. We've got the winter time to deal with. So you know, there's other things to talk about beyond the storms, beyond the fun thunderstorms that everybody likes to follow. And again, that's where just kind of living and working here comes into play. You know what to talk about. You know what people are interested in, and you know what people like to do or what's going on. So you just kind of have a better feel for what to talk about. Well, thankfully, nothing crazy has happened. With these storms, and it doesn't appear like there's anything excessively to worry about. So we're just kind of following these as they continue to move to the north and east. But everything's been behaving. No spin ups. Had a little bit of rotation up by Grigla for a bit. But other than that, these storms are continuing to move off into Badger and Roseau and War Road. And we'll be exiting out into Canada shortly. No, I don't. Carrington, North Dakota, got about 2 inches, 2 and 7 tenths of rain out there. Grassy Butte over 2 inches. Ellendale had some wind damage. A roof ripped off down to the rafters in Ellendale, North Dakota. That was around 5:26 this morning. Well, good. Glad I'm out there for you, crazy Viking lady. Bit of a Viking fan, are we? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to be this year. New coach, new everything. That's going to be an interesting one. I don't know. Of course, are we to the point to where we just kind of we just expect we expect a letdown, right? Aren't we just all there with everything? Just seems to matter what, whether it's hockey or basketball or whatever. Just can't. And for sure, Vikings. Uh, yeah, we've got a history in Minnesota, don't we? Oh, that's why. Okay, you're that direction. Your ancestors were actually Vikings. That's pretty cool. Hmm. I've never. I don't know. I guess I can't say I've never known anybody that had actual Viking ancestors. Well, good. I guess I'm just sitting here thinking, well, so you obviously you're not claiming to be a Viking fan, so you're saving yourself a lot of heartache then. So we're just continuing to monitor these storms as they move through northwestern parts of Minnesota at this point, and about to exit out into Canada here. Very, very shortly, coming up on Roseau. These storms have been moving northeast at about 70 miles per hour. Again, just creating or having 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, if I could talk correctly, associated with maybe up to an inch in hail in some spots. But overall, the winds are the main issue that we continue to follow here. Basically, right in through that region. So shortly here, we'll kind of follow for a bit longer, and then we will be able to let the stream go. Appreciate everybody for watching. Give her the old thumbs up if you can. That way this stream gets noticed a little more every time I'm on. Hit the subscribe button so that you know when I am on live, as well as if I upload any type of weather forecasts. I haven't been able to do that last couple of days just because of the severe weather that's been occurring. But I usually try and get out a forecast. I'll talk about it a little bit here shortly again before we leave. Yeah, that's smart. Just be done with the Vikings. Here's the satellite view. We kind of talked about earlier some of these darker areas, meaning the overshooting tops, the large the main updrafts within these storms. Not quite as robust as they were a little bit earlier. Obviously, the lightning as well kind of continues on with these, so that's also something else. So also to talk about is just the lightning involved as these move to the northeast. Oh, kind of something I'm always nervous about when I'm out storm chasing is more so the lightning more than anything else. I mean, you can see the storm coming when you're storm chasing. You can stay out ahead of things and have a plan, but you just never know. You just never know when the lightning's going to strike, do you? So that, I don't know. It just always makes me a little nervous when I'm outside. It's kind of late. All right, we're just going to pop over to the forecast a little bit. And then I think I'll just kind of step out and let the radar take over at that point. I'm going to make one little adjustment here. So here's kind of the latest thinking. There are those storms that move off to the north. Later in the afternoon, we may have some redevelopment kind of in that Roseau area, and then just kind of moving along the international border in the far northern parts of Minnesota. So may see some areas, Badger, Middle River, Greenbush, Thief, north of Thief River, up close to Roseau. And then kind of approaching International Falls, War Road. Maybe some stronger storms with some hail associated with them. Once again, this afternoon. Then as we get into the evening hours, those storms kind of dissipate and move eastward into the Arrowhead region. Now overnight, we'll have to be watching some storms that develop into Nebraska and Iowa and move into southern portions of Minnesota by early Wednesday morning. And there's the possibility that some of these as well, as we get a little bit deeper into the morning, could bring with it some hail and strong winds, maybe an isolated tornado, but I think the main threats will be the hail and some gusty winds associated with that. So for those of you kind of down into the cities and southward, down to that I-90 and down to Iowa, just be mindful of Wednesday morning possibility of a few severe storms rolling through your area, and then those storms roll off into Wisconsin into the afternoon hours. We do have some stronger winds and some rain, and maybe even a few claps of thunder across North Dakota on Wednesday, as this upper level low continues to sort of pivot around, bringing some showers across northern parts of Minnesota later in the day on Wednesday. So the other thing to talk about there is just the gusty winds. We're going to be talking about strong westerly winds, possibly 50, even 60 miles per hour in some areas. Where exactly some of the strongest winds, that's yet to be determined. You see some 20s further in northern parts of North Dakota. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 40s all throughout here. So just because you see 20s there at this point, don't count yourself as lucky just yet. But at any rate, 50 mile per hour winds ripping through North Dakota expected for your Wednesday. So if you shouldn't be planning on burning anything, I would say on Wednesday, or if you have a high profile vehicle or planning on moving, maybe not the greatest day for that. So that's kind of what we're thinking. And then beyond that, beyond Wednesday, there you see the showers and the strong winds. Temperatures really begin to warm up. We get this dome that kind of sets over us. Maybe some showers and storms fire up into central parts of Minnesota on Saturday and move eastward. But other than that, the main focus or the main thing to be talking about is the triple digit heat moving into South Dakota, maybe even North Dakota and southern portions of Minnesota through the weekend. So it's going to be hot, hot, hot this weekend. Hopefully you got somewhere to cool off at. And it'd be a great time to be at a lake or at a camping or at a cabin, somewhere where there's water. That's where you're going to want to be for this weekend. So that's what's left of our storms at this point. They're looking less and less exciting as they continue to move off to the northeast. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump out and I'll just kind of let the radar run here. And if anybody just kind of wants to follow it as it moves to the north, you certainly can. You can always ask questions on the chat. There is a chat area off to your side. You can always feel free to ask a question about any type of forecast across the Dakotas and Minnesota. Be happy to answer them. I'll just type in the answer back in the chat. I appreciate everybody for watching. Again, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and I'll kind of monitor the chat for a bit until these storms move out, and then we'll end the stream beyond that. All right, everybody have a good rest of your day.